Hello! Today we're going to continue our series on the Flintlock Smoothbore, and I'm going to talk about what I shoot out of my Flintlock in the way of round ball, and we're going to talk about the chewed ball, which is what I'm going to be shooting out of my Flintlock, and we're going to talk about why it's better for accuracy in the Flintlock than just a normal round ball with wadding. So we'll get over to a stump and we'll make ourselves a chewed ball. Okay, so we've come over to the stump here, and you don't have to have a stump. You can use a log or a rock, anything that's somewhat flat. So we're gonna make a chewed ball before we start talking about why we're making one. So right here, you see I have some chewed balls I just made, and I have 4 here of chewed balls, and then I have 1 here that's not a chewed ball, and you see how smooth that round ball is. But then you look at the chewed ball, and it is all dented and dimpled up. This round ball is not, and that's the difference. This is a chewed ball, obviously. So in the 18th century, the chewed ball historically would have been just that, literally. They would have popped this round ball in their mouth and would have chewed on it until they had the desired amount of dimples in it. So I'm not going to get lead poisoning. I don't want to do that. So I have a solution, and obviously other people have been using this, but this is a horseshoe rasp, and you can use a wood rasp as well. Any type of any type of file like that. And this horseshoe rasp happens to have 2 sides, a fine side and a rough side, and you don't need that necessarily, but this one has it, so I'm going to use it in this manner, which I'll explain. What I like to do is take the fine side and use that first, and I flip it over and use the rough side, and then I go to the fine side again. So I'll do that right now. We're just going to take our round ball, put that on the stump, take our fine side, and just start rolling it around. And I'm going to apply some pressure here, but not a whole lot, just enough to get that fine edge of that file to dig into that ball. So round and around and forward and back, all around it. And you see that's from the first run. Not quite done yet. So I'm going to take my rough side and do the same exact thing. There you go. Then I'm going to take my fine side. I don't necessarily have to do that. Do this, but I like to kind of put finishing touches on the ball with the fine side. So I'll just do the same thing and finish it up. And there you go. That's a chewed ball. So see, we have 5 chewed balls here, and we'll be shooting this in a little bit. But now we're going to talk about why a chewed ball. Why am I making it? Well, there's a science behind it, and then an obvious explanation. First, the obvious explanation is that I'm shooting a 60 caliber round ball out of a 62 caliber bore. So there's going to be some space there, and that causes inaccuracy. And I don't want that. So doing this, making a chewed ball, these little divots and dimples kind of make a rougher edge on the ball, which will give it more friction against the bore, almost, you could say, or more grip, so that it will be more accurate when it comes out of the bore. So, since there's a difference there, it will fill in that space a little bit more than just a normal 60 caliber bullet. Then the science. Why does the chewed ball work like this? Well, if you look at a golf ball, you'll see that it's dimpled. And the reason for that is because what I'll explain in here in a minute, but it will consequently let it to shoot farther and faster. So let's talk about it. A blunt object such as a golf ball without dimples, or a round ball without dimples, shoves aside the air in front and leaves a hole of much lower pressure behind it, because the air cannot fill in the space as quickly as the object is moving through. yeah. So it's kind of hard to explain. There's two forces that are acting on this round ball when I shoot it. There's a force of pressure behind it, or the powder charge behind it, which is pushing that ball forward. Then there's something called drag, which is the pressure in front of the ball trying to slow it down. And that's caused by the atoms in the air. As that round ball moves through the air, it has to push aside those atoms and push through the air. And when it's round, it will just kind of push through it, force its way through the air. And that causes significant drag, which is when the air, if it's pushing the air out of its way, it will, in some time, in the end, slow it down. And that's what makes a round ball fall. With gravity, obviously. But when a round ball without any dimples is pushing through the air, it pushes the air out of the way. It forces its way through, which kind of, if you can imagine, leaves a hole of no air behind it, because the air kind of gets pushed out of the way and then slowly comes back together. So that area where the air has not filled in behind the ball just yet has relatively no pressure, which will leave the ball it will have more drag. Excuse me, sorry. But the drag will be more intense on it because there's less pressure behind it. The pressure difference normally causes significant drag. As I said, if there's no pressure being pushed behind it, the drag will increase and the round ball will consequently not shoot as far. If a golf ball is dimpled, however, the air flowing nearest its surface is disturbed instead of moved smoothly out of the way. So if you have a roughed up surface like a golf ball with dimples or a chewed ball, those little dimples will kind of catch the air and disturb it, which will kind of move it out of the way as it goes through. So there's less drag, and that's important. That will make it more accurate and shoot farther. So let's continue. The disturbed air fills the hole of air behind the ball much more readily than would smoothly flowing air, reducing the pressure difference and the drag. So this disturbed air, kind of, when it pushes through, those little dimples will catch the air and almost give the ball a spin, which in turn kind of carries the air behind it and fills in that hole of air behind the ball, which will basically drop the drag a lot. So because the ball is not slowed as quickly by drag, it travels faster and consequently farther. So because that this dimpled ball will move that air out of the way better, there's less drag or force pushing against that ball. So the pressure can basically freely push the ball a lot farther. And that's really good. So this will help me be more accurate at close and farther ranges. So that's definitely something I want. So that's why we're going to be shooting a chewed ball. So stay with me and we'll shoot some chewed balls.